Philly on pause for a sec, since it's the last time we're going to talk to you. How do you feel about the building blocks you have for your offensive line going forward? Obviously, we know Andrew is one. You feel like you have the makings of like 4 or 5 of these guys could be the starters going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to do it, again, only because there is so much change. Things can't change. But when you start looking at, which is a part of our job at the end of the season, after the season, who's under contract and who's returning, you'd like to think that, we've got a good foundation. So looking forward to it.
What is it you like about this group?
Experience, toughness, accountability. They care, they like it. And then if things wouldn't change, then you have a group of guys that have all been together. And so there is a level of continuity. So, I mean, that is something you strive for.
We ask you a lot about Evan. We don't ask you a lot about John Michael Schmitz. What did you see from him in this second year? Because he was a guy that came in, people were like, he's a plug and play kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he's been maybe more up and down through 2 years, only one with you, obviously. 2 years than maybe people expected. What have you seen from his second year?
Saying that, again, I have so many thoughts or cliches that I use them, but they mean something to me, which was, the first one was, don't judge a player when they're young and injured, which John was both last year. But to say this year he has improved greatly, which I would say is what you expect. I mean, he's smart, he's tough, he cares. It really is important to him, and it shows. There's some specific things that, as a staff, we look at, on film and say, hey, we need to get better at this, this, and this. And he's checked a lot of those boxes. So we're not there yet. There's plenty, as you look at the film this year, of things we need to improve on. But not displeased at all with his performance and with his improvements. So that, again, it goes back to that. As a group, you just look at it and say, okay, there's a good foundation. You use that word, and I think it's probably a pretty good one to use.
How much has his shoulder bothered him? I mean, because in my mind, one thing I think he needs to improve is just brute strength up front. And at times he's talked about his shoulder. I mean, has that been an issue with him? Or
I think if you scanned any NFL offensive lineman's shoulder, you're going to see, I think between Runyon, John Michael, GVR, and Stinney, we probably have two functioning shoulders. So, I mean, to say that it prevents him from doing anything at this time, like, what's your level of injury? But it's real. Like, I'm laughing because I can't throw a football. I'm 48 years old, but I have an unrepaired shoulder, and that's just the nature of the business. And I didn't play in the NFL, so.
You mentioned his improvement.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, what are some of those things you want to see from John Michael this offseason?
Yeah, I think I'll keep that probably between John Michael and us. But, I mean, you can ask him. He'd probably be able to tell you some of the things he's pretty good at, knowing himself.
What about the improvement part? Like, you said you've seen him grow. And
I think.
Where have you seen that growth?
I think you really saw a big step insofar as his command at the line of scrimmage, and just him being able to solve problems. Like, as a coach, I try to keep things within a this or that. Like, hey, we're running this play, we expect this or that. Hey, the curveball could be the third thing, but you don't try to overwhelm them. Just the number of reps that he's had, and time on task, and the smart kid that he is. By the time he gets, you see him now being able to solve problems that, like, hey, I might not have presented those solutions. And then just his overall control of the mic points and how to set the table, so to speak. And I think that was an area that we asked him to make a big improvement in, and it did.
If Evan can't go this weekend, Tyree or who?
Yeah, somebody will be playing right tackle. I'm just not in the mood to
not you
help out. It won't be me. Yeah, that's one thing you can take to the bank. It won't be me.
You build the guy who's perfect to complement Dex in there. What does he have?
I'd say number one, long, athletic, quick, and physical. If he had those qualities, I can fix the rest.
Okay, there you go.
Have you been able to watch a lot of college players?
I haven't watched not one other than seeing it on TV and just watching it as a fan. No, not at all.
How do you expect? I don't know. You've coached a long time. You might have had a guy who had a dislocated elbow. How do you expect Dex to come back from that?
Perfectly fine. I've had a bunch of them. It goes with the territory of playing that position. You end up in awkward situations, and they all happen the same way. You're locked on a guy. You reach out to make a tackle, and friendly fire gets you. One of your own guys come in and catch you when your hand's on his shoulder, and the only thing that can go is the elbow. So I've had a bunch of them. that have had that, and some of them have happened early in the season, and the guy comes back and plays late in the year, and he didn't have to get surgery, so I expect him to be fine.
When you and your guys hear that Saquon's not playing, are you relieved, disappointed?
I really don't care. I really don't care. It's no big deal to me. Hey, we got to worry about their 5 offensive linemen, right? That's what we got to worry about. That's our job. And so our job is to prepare for their offensive line, and that's what we got to do. And so it really didn't matter who plays or who doesn't play. We got to defend whoever shows up out there on the field, and it was no big deal to me.
Is it hard to prepare not knowing even who's going to be
Yeah,
on their line?
we're preparing for all of them. You just you don't know until right before the game. So we're watching their 5 starters. We're watching all their backups to be prepared for whoever comes out there and lines up in front of us, and we have to prepare ourselves to play regardless who they put out there.
One of the bright spots that can happen at this time of year is maybe somebody who wouldn't have gotten an opportunity for a team that was, chasing the playoffs or whatnot, gets an opportunity. You're playing a lot of guys from the Rodgers, the Durden. Any of those guys in particular have popped for you that you're like, oh, wow, that, going forward, that guy's a piece for us?
Well, I think Elijah Garcia has done an outstanding job of taking advantage of his opportunity. He's played with length and power, and he's helped us a lot in the run game. I think he's done a really good job since he's been out there. I think Elijah Chapman getting more reps in the run game has proven that he can play the run and not just be a third down guy. So I think he's taken a huge advantage of his opportunity, and I think it's been really good for Jordan Riley. The more he's played, the more you've seen his length and physicality show up. So it's been real good for those guys to get an opportunity to play and not only show the New York Giants what they can do, but show the other 31 teams what they can do. And those guys have done a good job of that.
Big picture question. So last time we were talking to you this year, this was kind of the second straight year with the run stopping, the run defense kind of thing. How do you look at that from your perspective?
Well, I think it's a lot of different things come into that, and I think we've done a good job of studying and trying to figure out where the breakdowns have happened. And I think the guys have gotten better at it over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But it comes down to making sure, is it schematic? Is it player driven? Those are the things that you have to figure out as a coaching staff. Are we in the correct fronts and coverages that are giving us the best opportunity to slow down the run game? Do we need to get some different type of players to help us in the run game? And I think the other thing that happens too is the course of the game, you're seeing more volume of runs. Right, so if you go back and you look at the teams who are the top 10 teams against the run, they have a lot less runs at them. You know what I mean? When you're winning,
teams aren't running the ball as much.
That's exactly right. And so that plays a big part in it too. So I've been on both sides of it. I've been on where we weren't, statistically very good against the run, and I've been on the other side where we were the top in the league and against the run.
Right.
And every time we were in the top in the league against the run, we defended the least amount of run plays. You know what I mean? And on the other side of it, we had one of the best offenses in the NFL, right? So it all kind of goes hand in hand, So it's just like a baseball player. When I see a pitcher in the first inning, I want to keep seeing him, keep him out there. Get to about the 7th, 8th inning, I know it's tough. Well, when you have to play the run over and over and over and over and over and over, eventually they pop 1 or 2, and then now your totals go out. So I just think it's one of those things that we got to do a good job in the off season of looking at all of the categories of what we need to do to improve it.
At the end of the day, it's about playing the ball, and if I can put myself in position to see it, if I'm there and he's looking, then I would like to look, unless there are times when we're in a position where, like, I'm late, I'm close to the back line, and I know the ball is there. I may have to play hands to hand. He had one like that was a good play. But when in doubt, find the ball.
Yeah.
Is it strange preparing this week without knowing really who's going to be on the field for them?
preparing, like each week you go in and you think, this is our plan, this is what we're going to do, this is what they're going to do. And so I think what they're going to do will be, they will have the same runs, the same passes. It's just a matter of who they're going to put in those positions. Like who's likely to be the option guy now on third down for them? Who's likely to be the big boy ball for them on third down? You look at the roster and you look at the guys they have available and you try to piece it together that way. Like, the A.J. Brown routes, like who's going to run those? Well, you think it's going to be a big physical receiver. So you put that guy in that number that week and put him to run those routes. They're going to run the ball. That's what they are and that's what they do. So those same runs are going to be the same runs. It won't be Saquon running them. So obviously that's different. But like I think the preparation is the same, right? Going through and making sure we understand the issues that they put on our defense, how they put the issues on our defense, and it's just understanding who the people are they're going to put in those positions.
As a fan of the game, would you like to see Saquon out there, or are you kind of relieved not to deal with him?
Each week, you play the hand that you're dealt. And from week to week, we've had guys down that we wish were playing. We've had situations where they had guys down. Each week in the NFL, like we put our helmets on, strap up, and let's go play who's out there. And that's the approach we'll take this week.
The defenses we face some better run defenses. I mean, it hasn't been as splashy, and little nagging injuries here and there. Part of the rookie wall that does happen as part of the 17-game rigor. But obviously, when you get a guy at that pick, you're very happy with the productivity that's been put out there.
Mm-hmm. What are his strengths as a runner?
Obviously he's got some speed to him that I think the rest of the room, aside from Turbo, he's a little better there. I think his smarts are an asset. He has a willingness to play physical. I think it can get better. I think that's going to be a big off-season emphasis as far as now you've been through it for a year, and we got to develop that body and basically get it right to handle the rigors of 17.
So I was going to ask you what to work on that top of the
because
list.
quite honestly, you take away injury preseason and then really the first 3-4 games, it was a light load. So he really didn't have that wear and tear early on. So he's pretty fresh when we played Seattle, went through that little stretch there. So I think he's got to put some weight on to help himself out.
What has he done well on the big runs he has popped?
Definitive, a definitive run style, not dancing. When he gets in trouble is when he starts to hesitate. He's not comfortable with the cut or the read, and it's trust and I think this game try to stress it to the backs. It's when you get that second level, it's not about dancing. Like we got to push it vertical because everything's going to be pursuing. They're fast as well, and when he does have an ability to open up his gate and really run, he erases angles by getting vertical, and it's an asset for him in our offense when that does happen.
I'm sure he's not the first running back you've coached who has a fumbling issue. How do you fix that?
Well, you constantly, you never stop preaching it. I think with a little more weight, strength, it'll help him. Obviously he's a more linear guy than a rocked up, stocky guy. So the coverage, in my opinion, that's got to be improved, and that'll be something that is a major focus. It has been, but we'll have more time to work with it here in the offseason.
Even though it's a couple years now, is the position change a part of that too? Like he's just getting the ball in different spots with more bodies around him?
I'm not. That's an excuse, and I'm not going to go down that road. You're a running back. You got to take care of the ball.
Yeah.
What have you thought of his pass pro?
It started off pretty solid. I think last week was good. He responded to the fight. That's what I say. It got leaky there for a couple weeks, and the Atlanta game, it stands out, and that's something that we go in that room and I'm not worried about feelings. I want to make sure it's corrected, and he's responded, and that's an asset to him. Like he's not sensitive to it, and he knows he's got to get better.
So fair to say after the Atlanta game, you kind of gave him an earful.
Well, it was before the Atlanta game too, but that's something that we pride ourselves in. We've done a really solid job as far as assignments. Now it's the fight. That's what it is. You gotta take the bullet for the president, so to speak. So.
What have you thought about his demeanor? I mean, I think back to the Munich game where I know you weren't there, but we're sitting there in this massive interview room, and he's up on this huge podium, and he's got literally international media grilling him, and he seemed to really deal with that pretty well. I mean, what has been your impression of just how he's handled, all this stuff?
Well, it's obviously this isn't a small market first and foremost, as far as dealing with media and all that stuff. So it just shows that, obviously he's an older player relative to the rest of his class. So he's got a sense of maturity to him. I think he's done a solid job with that. I mean, it's something that he's going to get better at. I don't really see any negatives right now, but he's a strong. When I say a strong personality, it's not one that's divisive and all that stuff. Like he's confident, and I think that shows when he has to deal with the good and the bad.